Hi, I'm Amy Holthouse, host of Chamber Chat. Today my guests will be Dan Groth from the American Red Cross and Denise Lanman, our Director of Education and Events from the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for coming out today, Dan.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. As a chamber member, it's great to be able to sit here and chat with you and get the word out about our local Red Cross chapter.
Yes, and you always have a lot going on. It's always good to hear what's happening with you. But today I thought we might dive back a little deeper and start out with some of the history of the Red Cross and how it was founded. And I mean, when did it originate? It's
1881 is when Clara Barton founded it in Washington, D.C., but it actually goes a little deeper than that. Clara was a nurse by trade and was active on the battlefields in the Civil War and
Wow.
organized volunteer groups to make bandages and things like that. And after the war, she started an agency that was titled the Missing Soldiers Society, and she would help families find missing soldiers, dead or alive,
Right.
so that they could figure out what had happened to them.
How fascinating for that time in the world for a woman to be heading up that effort.
Yeah, it gets
neat.
better. After that, she went to Europe to go on vacation, but ended up getting involved doing the same things in the Franco-Prussian War, and met a fellow that had started the Red Crescent Society, which provided humanitarian aid mostly to armies on the battlefield, because armies at that point, even our own, had very little in the medical corps or how to take care of wounded soldiers or anything like that. So she kind of filled that bill. She returned stateside, and beginning in 1880 with a group of people, they organized the American Red Cross. They kind of factored it after the Red Crescent Society, but she titled it American Red Cross. But she took it one step further, and she wanted to include domestic humanitarian aid as it would relate to natural disasters and that sort of thing. So let's just talk about 1880 to 1917 real quick. She would respond to, and she and like three people would respond to different disasters around the country, and they could be hurricanes, they could be floods, they could be massive fires. And what she would do is they would go in and they would utilize local folks to volunteer, but aid would come in from like Chicago and New York and that sort of thing. It's interesting because I just finished reading a book that I got for Christmas that she wrote that covered 1881 to 1904, and it was like reading it was fascinating because it was like, okay, we're still doing the same thing, but how different was it back then?
Right. Well, I'm just thinking about the timing. We always talk about how quickly we need to get there and the reaction time and the response time, and think about the travel and getting the things there.
Yes.
And I'm sure it was
Because when I was reading it, she would get there as much as a week after the disaster. And one of the things we'll talk about shortly is now we start staging volunteers ahead of storms and disasters. So we're there before it hits, where then it was up to a week. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the big change came in when we entered World War I.
Okay.
All right. And lots of local chapters were organized. Just about every county in America had one. And that's when the Wayne County chapter was chartered by the National Red Cross. November 15th, 1917, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
And in those days, what they would do is they would do the bandage rolling and knitting, hats and gloves and stuff like that for the soldiers. But the other thing that the American Red Cross provided then and in World War II as well was a large number of nurses and ambulance drivers and things like that.
Right.
So basically, from the beginning to the Second World War, that's what they did.
Well, and just think how much she grew that. I mean, you were talking about a few handful, maybe half a dozen at the most people, and now you're talking about countywide efforts across the country in relatively short period of time.
Well, the other interesting fact is that by the close of World War I, there was probably over 3,000 local chapters in America, and it's now back down to 526.
Really?
But that's because populations mold together and that sort of thing.
And mobility.
And it's cost effective and that sort of thing. But the other thing that the Red Cross in World War II became very involved in is blood, the collection of blood and distribution of it. Now, we do not do that here locally.
Okay.
We're not a blood collection site. And that's a whole political thing, believe it or not, between blood centers and whatnot. So a couple decades ago, they just made up territorial lines, and we were lucky enough, I've been told, not to have to collect blood.
Get in that.
But anyway, and that's what we did.
For a while, okay.
And where am I going?
You're at
We have 4 basic services that we provide, and one is blood services, which we just talked about, and that's collection of blood. They sell blood products. They do a lot of research. We probably got 20,000 people that are involved in just our blood services.
So are there collection sites in bigger cities, or is it just because we're in a smaller town?
No, it just depends on where the
Random?
territory
Okay.
is. We're in a region that's 10 chapters, basically covers the surrounding areas for Dayton and Cincinnati. And out of the 36 counties, there's only one county,
That
Logan
does that.
County, that's part of a blood services
Okay.
region. So, but we just don't have to be involved with that.
Right.
The other core service is preparedness, health, and safety. And everybody's familiar with CPR and first aid classes and that sort of thing. We used to do all of that locally. We would hire the instructors and do the classes and everything. Now that's a standalone division. They utilize our building, but we don't have to do anything with it. And people can go online to www.redcross.org to take a class, and
Oh, great.
they can
Sure.
search all over for whatever it is that they want. They can register for the class, pay for the class online.
Great.
That's the way it is today.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot of information on redcross.org that people will want to go on there and poke
Search.
around and look at it.
Yeah, it's an excellent website.
Now, the two other core services that we do locally very intensely is our services to the armed forces. And what that is, in 1906, Congress chartered the American Red Cross to be the official communication link between families stateside and their family members of serving in the armed forces.
I didn't know that.
So, excuse me, if the family had to deliver a message that grandma was in the hospital and probably on her deathbed or something like that, they would call us. We'd take all the information. We would verify all that information, turn it over to the military. They send it to the person's CO who reads it, delivers the message. Now, in some cases, the family is requiring that person to come home for a last visit or a funeral or
Right.
whatever it might be. And the commanding officer makes the decision as to whether the service person can come home or not the American Red Cross. And that's a misnomer that I've run up against.
Oh, that
Even
you get
to
to
this
decide,
day,
right?
that
wow.
that the Red Cross made the
Sure.
decision that my buddy couldn't come home from Korea or whatever, and no, it was your
Yeah.
commanding officer who
Yeah,
made that
I was
decision,
gonna
not us. We 3 years ago, at the height of Iraq and Afghanistan, we were probably doing 3 or 4 of those messages per week.
Wow.
We're now down to averaging about 1.
Okay.
And the neat thing is when I go out and talk to groups that people have utilized this service all the way back to World War II. So I've talked to either veterans or their spouses and I've heard from every conflict where it's been used.
Well,
so it's a
and
neat
really,
thing.
if you think about, that would be very cumbersome in a situation like that to try to get to your loved one communication-wise. So it's, I mean, that's a great service to provide.
Well,
people
and with communication the way it is now, you know, the families and the service person have already talked now because they can, but they still have to go through this channel.
Right.
So
get their approvals and all that.
Yeah, and the fourth thing is disaster relief, and that's at so many levels: the local, our region, our division, nationally. Locally, we primarily respond to single-family fires, and single-family fires are the largest disaster that the American Red Cross responds to. There's over 70,000 fires per year that local chapters are responding to.
See, I don't think people are aware of that.
It's the number one disaster.
That you
Correct.
deal with.
And every chapter is involved with that. And that fluctuates from year to year. You know, when I first started 4 years ago, the common thing was a candle being knocked over, or they had borrowed grandma's plug-in heater and it started a fire. And then we went through a lot of electrical fires. And now we got, you know, people putting a pan of grease on the stove, walk away.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, and fires strike everybody and anybody. And we don't care who you are, we're there. I mean.
Yeah. You guys do a great, I mean, just thinking about the day-to-day supplies and just being there immediately and helping those people get where they need to be.
Well, and what we do is, first of all, we're the only organization that does this, you know, first on the scene in a fire. And the way that works is the fire departments, which we work with, will ask the family if they have a place to go or whatever. And if they don't, do they need help? Would they like the fire department to call the Red Cross? They do. They call a call center, and the call center calls us. Now, we have volunteers that actually respond to these fires. We call them DATs, Disaster Action Team members. And they go out, they're paired up, and they go on call from Monday afternoon to Monday morning. Any calls during the day, Jen and I respond to. Okay, so it's the after-hour calls that our volunteers do. They'll call back, call center will call them, give them all the vital information. They'll call the firemen and get a little bit of heads up, and then they go to the site and they process the family. Now, we're prepared to give them shelter in the form of a motel for up to 2 nights. There's magic formulas for clothing and food, all right, which are put on we call it a CAC card, which they can shop with. So what's nice about it is they can go wherever they shop.
Right.
Up until a year ago, we would give them a dispersing order, and they had to go to Kmart or they had to go to Marsh. But now they can go, and they don't have to go to.
Familiar with,
or
what
right.
Yeah.
So, and then we gather all the information, and we follow up with the family. We leverage and get them out to other agencies and services in town that they might need and are looking for. We're also very involved with Charity Tracker, which is a program that the United Way underwrites, and that has been awesome on so many levels. So
it's fascinating.
Yes.
It is.
So
we just had a presentation on that, so I feel knowledgeable on that.
The community needs to know that initially we would put all the information in there, and it was tracked. But to get member agents, other nonprofits and food pantries and clothing pantries and churches on that, we can track the help of a family through the whole system. And that's the upside. Plus, they can produce reports as, you know, how much money is being spent as a community, how many families, how many kids, you know, the whole 9 yards. And then, sadly, it also, well, goodly, but you know, you got people that try to work a system and whatnot, and they can't do it.
That's helping a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's good though, because there never seems to be enough help as much as we try to do, and so with that system, it's going to help make sure that dollars and services are allocated, you know, as thoroughly as possible, and that people aren't taking advantage.
Well, what's interesting in talking to other colleagues is we used to get a lot of walk-ins, people that just walk in looking for anything, may or may not have needed it, but once these charity tracker placards have gone on our front doors, our walk-ins have basically disappeared.
Really?
I mean, we'll help anybody that
Sure.
needs it, but you know, our dollars are limited, and you know, we want to make sure that we're doing the best use of it.
Right.
And
Right.
but anyway,
That's good.
the other thing we're involved in is our local emergency management agency, and we're a piece of the puzzle so that if something should happen throughout Wayne County, a tornado or whatnot, we all have a piece of our pie that we take care of. And ours is shelter, mass care, it's sheltering and food. So we have all those systems in place, designated shelters throughout the county, mostly with churches,
Right.
excuse me, to handle that. And
How would someone find out where where would my shelter be? How do I find out? Do I call you? Is it on your website?
it's
or?
all through, yes. Locally, everything's going to go out over the radio stations, and I believe WCTV as well. And then people can go on redcross.org, and they can find shelters in America, and you can track that. And another service that happens through that same part of the website is, and I forgot the name of it, but we track people still.
Oh.
So like when Storm Sandy hits or any of
Right.
the big ones, people in the disaster zone can register on this website so that family members can find them outside, or a family member can go in and register saying, I'm looking for my
Brother
I'm looking
or
for
whatever.
you.
Right.
So and that's a really cool
That's
thing.
neat. Yeah.
But our group, all the agencies involved with the emergency plan for Wayne County, we all speak to each other. We all get along well. I've been
That's
to a
good.
couple things recently where state folks have come in and they just can't believe that our EMA director talks to the police chief or the sheriff. I mean, that everybody's you know in it for.
We're
For
pretty
the community.
fortunate
Yeah,
here.
we are. It's Wayne County rocks.
We do. We
Yeah.
have great people. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So anyway,
So with all that stuff, Dan, how do you raise your money? How can we
it's
help?
not free. I mean, it's not cheap. First of all our services, like disaster services, services of the armed forces and whatnot, those are free services. We don't charge anybody for that. All those herbs running around in New York and New Jersey handing out food, that's all free to the people. So we raise funds, and there's all kinds of ways to do it. Again, you can give online,
Right.
which is the easiest. You can mail it directly to us here locally. We do have a newsletter format that goes out. But one of the things that we have locally, excuse me, is we started 3 fundraisers 3 years ago. All those funds to be used for local disaster relief, and we decided early as a board that they would be fun events and that we would grow them. And we knew that it might take 2 or 3 years to grow them and get them up where we needed them to be.
Yeah.
And so we chose what's coming up now is the Fire and Ice Prom, which is coming up on February 9th. And that's a fun evening of food and dance, and we do a live auction this year. Started it last year. We're doing it again this year. We have a DJ. Formal dress is not required.
Right.
All right. So if you come, you'll see everybody from almost executive casual to the whole tuxedo and all that sort of thing. So this is a fun one.
And it is fun. And I, even after I'd heard Fire and Ice Prom, it didn't quite sink in. But I think it's just such a cool name because those are the 2 key things that you help
that
with.
we respond
The
to.
fire and ice emergencies
Correct.
here locally, and that's what the money's for, right?
So this
I love
is
that.
this is a fun event. We got great sponsors: B&F Plastics, Kicks 96 in the Point, and we have a whole slew of others that help out with this. And it's just a really, really neat thing, and it's growing, and it's growing.
It is growing.
And starting next week, tune into Kicks 96 in the Point because you have opportunities to win free tickets, which will be cool.
That'd be
And then
great.
we picked a golf tournament. Now, everybody in Wayne County does a golf tournament, but we did ours different. We did a par 3 golf tournament. All holes are par 3s. It's cool. We have a shotgun start at 1, and you're packed up and going by 4:30 food all
Great.
day long. We don't do an opening
That's my
lunch.
kind of
you
golf.
know, it's awesome. It's a lot
Yeah.
of fun. And that's in June. That's the last Friday in June. And then we do a bowl-a-thon that we do that in October, which that's a lot of fun too. And
You guys do a great job with. I mean, you kind of pack the house. It's a lot of teams and a lot of people, and
yeah, we're
fun
getting
stuff.
there.
Yeah.
So those are the three things that we've concentrated on. Between them last year, they raised $26,000 net for all the disaster services and service to the armed forces that we provided. Wasn't quite the total dollar amount, but it sure went a long way on taking care of that. And
sure.
then just quickly, we call them third-party fundraisers. We've been very involved with the In Concert series, excuse me, with Fourth Floor and the Christmas Festival.
Both. The In Concert series is fantastic. They're doing a great job with that. It's a lot of fun, and I love that it kind of lasts all year. You have something
Right.
to look forward to, and the Christmas festival. I mean, that thing is just grown exponentially. People
Yep.
have a ball. So we'll get some of this information up for the viewers and get them connected to you.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to the Fire and Ice Prom myself. I will be there. So
You better be.
thanks for joining
All
us
right,
today.
well, thank you.
And we appreciate your time and all your information. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
My next guest today is Denise Lanman. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Amy.
Well, we just had a great visit with Dan Groth from the Red Cross, and he was talking about a lot of his activities and fundraisers and things like that. So I thought we might share a little bit of an outlook or forecast on the chamber front, what we have coming up this spring.
Well, the first thing that we have that is going to come up, which will be after the annual chamber dinner in January, is a CNN or a chamber network night that we have set up with All Brothers Lawn Squad and Forest Hills Country Club.
Great. So that'll be in February.
That is in February, and that's
Do you have a date?
I do.
Okay.
It's February 28th.
Okay. And that's a Thursday?
It is
right?
a Thursday.
Okay. So 5 to 6:30 out at Forest Hills, partnering with All Brothers Lawn Squad.
Yes.
And do they have, are there details, or do we have an activity, or do we know what's going on, or are we going to wait and see?
We're
and be
gonna-
surprised.
We're going to wait and see. It's going to be a surprise, but I'm going to guarantee you that it is going to be fun.
It will be fun. The All Brothers guys are fun, and Forest Hills is thinking out of the box. And I heard, just a little birdie yesterday told me that they were wanting to do something unique, something different
Yes.
that we haven't done before. So we'll see what happens.
Yep,
Okay.
and there's plans in process. So,
That's
but it
exciting.
will be exciting.
That's
It'll be a surprise, and I'm sure it will be fun.
So that'll be the Chamber Network night for February. And then as I recall, we talked about, and I think it's tentatively on the books, to have a Chamber Network night for March with Hayes Arboretum as they do their opening for the spring. Is that
That's
tentative?
true, and it's not tentative
Oh,
any
good.
longer.
Good.
We do have a date for that also. That's March the 21st,
Okay.
and of course it will be at Hayes, and it will coincide with their opening.
Excellent.
So-
So we've got a lot just shortly here in the early spring, February 28th at Forest Hills with All Brothers, and then we'll host another CNN March 21st at Hayes Arboretum for their opening for the spring.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then looking out a little bit further, kind of piggyback on what Dan had talked about, we have our annual golf outing, which is always very exciting. We're sort of the first one out of the block in the spring, and so the weather's usually a little crazy, but we're always the first Friday in May. So it's kind of exciting. People look forward to it. Typically, we're known as the first golf outing of the spring. So people get excited and really come out and support us in that effort. And that is one of our big fundraisers as well. So that'll be exciting to get going on that project too. So anything else from your desk that you want to share? I know you're still relatively new with us and getting things going and meeting people, and hope you're enjoying that. We're certainly pleased to have you on staff with us at the Chamber. But
I am enjoying my new position, and I am very thankful for all our volunteers and the support that they give us. And without them, we wouldn't be able to accomplish what we accomplish.
Absolutely. We do have a
So.
very strong base of volunteers on all different levels. There's groups that kind of have their specialty, and it doesn't matter. You can call, and they're always willing to jump in and help. I agree.
Yes, I found that out as I have
Yeah.
used them and needed them.
Yeah. And now you're starting to pick up on the categories of people. There's the box fillers, the sign hangers. So you'll start to learn who to call for what.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. Hopefully all of you will join us at the Chamber Network Nights for 2013. Our next big fundraiser is our golf outing, so be watching for more details on that. It'll be, again, the first Friday in May. Looking forward to all of those things, and keep track of us on our website, and our events calendar will grow as the year comes along, and we'll hope to see you at all of the events for this year. Thank you for joining us on Chamber Chat today. I'll thank my guests, Dan Groth from the American Red Cross and Denise Lanman from the Chamber, and thank you for joining us and taking time to hear what's happening at the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce.